Hey everybody, it's Adam Farkas. Welcome back to another ODwire webinar. Now, tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the role of the technicians in your practice, right? So normally we just talk about new technology and how that relates to you, but tonight we're going to switch the focus on to technicians. And of course, I'm not here alone. I have an expert, as usual, to come here and give us this talk tonight. But before I introduce him, let me remind everyone of some ground rules. On the right side of your screen, you'll see a box that says questions. If you have a question during tonight's presentation, feel free just to key it on in there. And what we'll do is I'll hold it aside at the very end. I will verbally ask our speaker the questions, and we'll have a little back and forth. So whatever comes to mind as you're watching, feel free to type a question in that box, and we'll get to it later. The other question people had was, I know that at ODwire we like to do raffles, and this time we're doing it for an Apple Watch. We'll do the drawing after the show is over tonight, and then we'll email you if you won, and we'll also post it on ODwire. So with that said, let me get back to the topic at hand here. So refining the role of your tech to grow your practice. And the expert we have with us tonight is Dr. Gregory O'Connor, and he's the owner of Malibu Eye Center Optometry in beautiful Malibu, California. And Dr. O'Connor has over 35 years of experience in eye care. At his particular practice, it's full scope. He co-manages refractive surgery patients as well, and it's a very high-tech practice. He's got the latest gadgets and gizmos, and he stays on sort of the cutting edge. You know, sort of germane for this discussion as well is Dr. O'Connor's business acumen. So he's the recipient of the Malibu Business Person of the Year Award and has been president of the Malibu Chamber of Commerce. I think it's important to realize, you know, when we talk about the role of the technician and using it to build your practice and your business, you know, Dr. O'Connor doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. So with that said, Dr. O'Connor, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Adam, for that warm introduction. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar in which we will invite you to reimagine your practice, and in doing so, refining the role of your technician. In turn, I will tell you what came about to cause me to reimagine my practice of 38 years and how I continue to refine the role of my technicians. Of course, acquiring new technology is a major part of the process. Therefore, along the way, I will tell you why I invest in new technologies and how delegating the collection of diagnostic data from them by my technicians allows me to operate at the top of my full scope of licensure. And at the end, we'll be delighted to answer your questions during the Q&A session. So a little about me. I'm a product of the Midwest and am a graduate of the University of Michigan and the Illinois College of Optometry, where I was fortunate to be a recipient of the Armed Forces Health Professions Scholarship. Among its many benefits, it got me relocated to the area of Southern California, where I plan to eventually establish my private practice by way of being assigned to my duty station of the Naval Regional Medical Center at Camp Pendleton. It's a Marine Corps base just north of San Diego. During my 3-year active duty obligation, I acquired my California license, and upon completion of it, bought my practice in Malibu. It was just a 550 square foot office with antiquated equipment, and seeing patients only a half day a week. But I saw it as a diamond in the rough, and now 40 years later, I've polished it into 2 thriving locations, performing exams and serving patients 7 days a week, with the belief that my patients deserve the best technology, especially co-managing a large amount of refractive surgery. I believe to be successful in private practice, and certainly was true in my case, it's really important to get yourself out there in the community. I started by joining my local service club called the Optimist Club that had 90 members at the time. Through it, I got introduced to the schools, and therefore the schools invited me to do screenings, to give presentations to the students. Then I also involved myself in the Chamber of Commerce. That got me introduced to people like the county supervisor, my state legislators. So it really got me connected. And all these connections really help in terms of bringing patients to you professionally after they get to know you personally. It's remarkable to me how much the profession has grown in the 40 years I've been practicing in California. It's not quite to where we'd still like it to be, but I would encourage all of you to pay your dues and support your professional associations, because they really certainly do help to advance our profession. So as I mentioned, I was telling you about me and that I'm a firm believer in my patients deserving the best technology. In this section, I will go into more specifics as to why I invest in new technology. Established location, the Malibu Eye Center Optometry is a very successful boutique clinic located in what was the premier shopping center in Malibu when I signed the lease in 1992. It caters to savvy, sophisticated eye care and eyewear consumers. Many have had eye examinations at places like Bascom Palmer, Wilmer, and Jules Stein Eye Institutes, but they prefer coming to me because of my advanced technology. They are never kept waiting because my technicians engage them right away, and the confidence they have in my recommendations. So what caused me to reimagine an established practice of 38 years? Well, there were three simultaneous developments. The first is, effective January 1st of 2020, California revised its Optometry Practice Act from allowing the independent optometrists to have only two locations, in which case you had to split your professional time 50-50 between the two locations, to now having 11 locations with no such restriction. Second, the landlord with whom I signed my lease in 1992 subsequently sold the property, and in 2020 opened a magnificent new retail center that looks more like a park and community gathering place than the typical strip mall on a parcel that's very close by. He offered me the first option to open an optical, but if I declined, he intended to get another party to do so. Third, just a few parcels down the street from his new center, a new campus of Santa Monica College is under construction. And just beyond that, the street ends into the entrance of the campus of Pepperdine University. So I knew I had to accept his offer, even with 3 years remaining on the lease of my established location, and that the new location would have to appeal to and serve a younger demographic. On either side of my new location, Malibu Insight Optometry, there is a Tesla dealership and a Blue Bottle Coffee. And anchoring the center is a fantastic new Whole Foods. So these particular retail centers, or these businesses, bring in a tremendous amount of young people. And so I knew that in this location, I would definitely have to gear myself and the practice to a younger demographic. And one trend that I had observed at my established location is that younger people like the convenience of the ability to just walk in and have just their eye or optical problem alone addressed. So I realized that I would need beyond the state-of-art technology whose design would appeal to them and handle a large walk-in medical clinic potential as well. So before I talk about my selection criteria, I just want to have you look at that beautiful picture there. That is the Visionix eye refract, and I'm very anxious to tell you all about it a little later on in the presentation. But my technology selection criteria, well, patients, wealthy or not, perceive eye care and eyewear as a considerable expense. Therefore, they appreciate seeing some of that revenue spent acquiring the latest technology to improve the quality and comfort of their care in the minimum amount of time necessary. That's really important in Malibu. My patients in Malibu do not like to have their time wasted, so I don't even have waiting rooms in either establishment. I realize that I'm spending my patients' money, so I want to acquire what best specifically serves the needs of my target demographic. The benefit to me is the ability to delegate the process of gathering a tremendous volume of diagnostic information by my technicians, analyzing it, and thus building my confidence in my clinical decision-making and patient presentation. So it certainly makes my clinic life easier and more enjoyable. I joke with my patients. I say that before I acquired all this wonderful technology, I used to have to work for a living. The new technology just makes everything just so enjoyable. The information's right there. You have the education and experience to convey all that wonderful information, put it in terms that your patients can appreciate. And trust me, that's going to be a huge practice builder. The benefit to my staff is the ease of learning and operating the latest technology, especially Luno technology, and the potential to earn more by increased and smoother patient flow and the respect they garner from my patients. In fact, many of my patients think that they are the doctors, and I'm, of course, the chief medical director. The main point here is that my patients are very comfortable with my technicians conducting these diagnostic tests. They have no reservation about it at all. I've never heard one negative word from my patients regarding that. So expanding on a medical model for the second location, another fabulous picture I want you to pay attention to. You think of very successful businesses like Apple and Tesla, and I think a large part of their success is they really pay attention to industrial design. They want their products to look beautiful and high tech. And this is a picture of the Visionix VX40 lensometer and the Visionix VX120 plus dry eye module, sitting side by side on a table, not taking up very much room at all. So although my second location, in keeping with my philosophy of my patients deserving the best and being exceptionally well suited to meet my goals of accepting walk-ins, attracting a younger demographic, and a boutique type location, and giving me flexibility for patient consultation time. All of this comes at a considerable ongoing cost per square foot. So further considerations for acquiring new technology are a compact setup, but with a sleek, elegant industrial design, and also potential for telemedicine. So currently I can have the ability to serve patients in both locations simultaneously and interact with my staff. And then if I do expand beyond 2 locations to 3 or more, then we'll have already the infrastructure in order to keep communication among the various locations very fluid. So refining the role of the technician. Of course, opening a second location requires refining the role of the technician. So rethink the patient experience. No pretest room. This gives you the flow of my new location, Malibu Inside Optometry. The top photograph under the heading technician, that is my fabulous technician Jennifer and one of my patients. And as you saw earlier, that is the Visionix VX40 and the VX120 Plus side by side. They don't take up very much room. And the flow is the patient comes in, if they're a new patient, we take their eyeglasses, we place them in the VX40 lensometer, which is an amazingly easy instrument for your technicians to operate. They simply place the eyeglasses in the holder and press a button, and the instrument records all the rest. A feature I particularly like about it is it gives this beautiful color display of the actual optics of each lens. And when it comes to troubleshooting a progressive addition lens, it's a real godsend. So we have the eyeglass information. Then we actually ask the patient to bring in their contact lens packaging so we can take pictures of that to enter into their EHR. Both practices feature the Eyefinity EPM and EHR, so that gets entered in. Then the patient is brought to me, and I interview the patient, find out, why, what brought him in, that kind of thing, get to know him a little bit. I do a little bit of testing, do slit lamp biomicroscopy, and then I turn the patient over to my technicians, and they take him into the room at the top and they do the VX120 Plus. We are very big, and so is Luno Technology, on designing instruments so patients feel comfortable. So we really pay particular attention in the beginning to get the patient comfortable and getting them grossly aligned. But after that, the Visionix 120 Plus has automated 3D alignment, tracking, and focusing. So again, once they're basically aligned, the technician presses a button, the instrument does all the rest for both eyes. Then the patient's taken to the next room where I have the Visionix iRefract and the NIDAC Daytona Plus scanning laser ophthalmoscope. And then the technician begins the iRefract manifest refraction. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. While they're doing that, I'm reviewing all the information already that the Visionix 120 Plus has provided me, and that's a tremendous wealth of information. Please do yourself a favor and avail yourself of the demonstration sometime. It really is mind-blowing what it can tell you. So this is kind of the thing I look at, when I'm reviewing. The top slide is from the VX 120 Plus, Visionix VX 120 Plus dry eye module. That's actually one of the displays showing the tear breakup time and other features. It's really amazing stuff. So eventually then, once all the information is gathered by my technicians after they've done the scanning laser ophthalmoscope, the OptiMaps, I have everything right there on my desktop to make my presentation to my patients. How I empower my techs to take ownership. Again, please pay attention to the photograph. That is the tablet that the technician uses to conduct the manifest refraction with Visionix iRefract. Doesn't look totally high tech. Again, it's as I'll say later, it's scripted, it's step by step. It's very high tech, but it's also very, very easy for my technician to conduct a very, very accurate manifest refraction. So to empower my technicians to take ownership of new technology and the increased responsibility attendant to it is to involve them from the very, very outset. If I learned about a new technology that I think might benefit our patients, I ask for their input right away. If we agree it merits further consideration, we jointly acquire more knowledge from the website video demonstrations during COVID, but whenever possible, we always try to get hands-on assessment. Prior to COVID, I was happy to pay for my technicians to travel, to attend things like Vision Expo. They get very excited. It boosts their morale. And they also get to see the competition, and they come to really appreciate why Luno technology, in this case, really excels. If it is acquired, everyone takes part in the training, and we make certain that we have the trainer's contact information and customer support for assistance after the training ends. And I must say, of all the vendors with whom I've dealt with in high tech, Luno technology it shines the brightest. They are completely responsive in a very quick way, and responsive to me, to my techs. We get wonderful, after installation support. I'm very grateful to Deidre, Melissa, and James, and the clinical application specialists who so readily, help us out with any little snags we might hit. Delegate refractory refractometry with confidence. I know for a lot of doctors, and perhaps in my earlier days, this would have been a hurdle too, but to really turn refraction over to technicians. But having confidence in delegating refractometry among other diagnostic gathering procedures frees me to play my main role of educating my patients. With that knowledge, my patients now feel empowered to make decisions for themselves about the options available to them with confidence. So now my recommendations are not perceived as my trying to sell them something, but with their knowing the potential to improve the quality of their life, understand the value. Since the patient's eyes are their brains, and since it's estimated that 80% of thought processing results from visual input, it is our mission to create the most precise tool possible for their vision in order for their brains to operate at their most efficient level. This tool, be it eyeglasses, contact lenses, or refractive surgery, all depend on the most accurate and reliable refraction device possible. And for me, that tool is the Visionix iRefract, again pictured here, with my technician, Jennifer, holding the tablet, the patient very comfortably seated in the instrument. This compact 2 feet by 4 feet automated binocular refraction system with its open space environment conducted under physiologic pupil conditions down to 2 millimeters in diameter, is wheelchair accessible. It's acceptable to even the most claustrophobic of my patients. And I actually had one patient that got so claustrophobic, sitting in the standard exam chair behind the phoropter, just eventually pushed it away and ran out of the room and right out of the practice. Came back about a half hour later, a little sheepishly, but claustrophobia is something that you really have to be aware of with your patients. And my claustrophobic patients so far have felt totally comfortable with the iRefract. What's nice too is they design it so patients can put their arms on either side of it and hug it. You can see there's room there for the patient's arm. And this also helps patients, my elderly patients who are a little infirm, or my patients who have tremor conditions like Parkinson's patients. It helps steady them, and that helps in the process of ultimately being able to gather the very best manifest refraction for them. The dual Shack-Hartman wavefront aberrometers with patented PowerMap wavefront technology refract 1,500 points simultaneously in each eye. An artificial intelligence developed algorithm analyzes the point patterns on the CCD sensors and automatically loads the corresponding distance correcting lenses into the digital phoropter that is remotely controlled on the tablet provided, making it CDC compliant in the age of COVID. If the patient wears prescription glasses, the neutralization from the Visionix VX40 is already loaded, and the technician enters the patient's age and follows the scripted step-by-step method to yield the manifest refraction. The technician then has the patient select the option that gives them the best vision, be it the lens meter reading, the wavefront finding, or the manifest refraction. And all binocular vision coordination testing can be performed, such as stereopsis, Fourier testing. All of that can be performed on this instrument. If near testing is desirable, a very cool pop-up tablet can be lifted from the folding position, much cooler looking than the rotochart on the near point rod. How many of us have kind of clumsily banged our head in with it as we lowered or something like that? This is so much more impressive for the patient. And the targets visible to the patient can be adjusted by the technician. And also you can set the tablet at varying testing distances. This is for like computer monitor, then for reading. So the Visionix iRefract generates accurate prescriptions with more repeatable results when compared to peer-to-peer refractions based on the 2018 Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology study entitled Efficacy and Repeatability of Aberrometry-Based Binocular Refraction compared with subjective refraction. So ARVO is, a very prestigious organization, and for them to state that about the iRefract to me was very reassuring in purchasing it, that it was going to yield a very accurate and reliable refraction, and therefore I would have no qualms whatsoever in delegating it to my technician. So kind of to review, the technology is very easy to learn for the technician. Technician verbally guides the patient through the screening process. We do repeat any test results that are questionable. It's easy to do. It tells you all the things it can do. It's the Visionix VX120 Plus is actually 8 diagnostic instruments in one, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a while. And the whole thing, the whole patient flow, basically from the time they come in right on through the taking of the OptiMaps, takes about 10 minutes. And it's all very, very comfortable for my patients going through the process. Operating at the top of my license. By knowing all the necessary information before the presentation, I can lay out all the options available to the patient and make recommendations for further testing, treatments, and product considerations within the full scope of my licensure to capture as much potential revenue as possible. And that is one way you can rather quickly realize a pretty substantial return on your investment in this technology. So this is the summary page. I mentioned that the instrument has 8 diagnostic instruments in it. It has the dry eye analyzer, the anterior chamber analyzer, the Shack-Hartman wavefront aberrometer, the Scheimpflug optical pachymeter, the corneal topographer, which maps out 100,000 points, the autorefractor, the autokeratometer, and the non-contact tonometer. So below are kind of the 8 buttons that correspond to the 8 different diagnostic instruments. This is the summary page, the bottom tab on the left there. I basically quickly scan this to look for red flags. This has a wonderful keratoconus predictor index, certainly critical if you're considering refractive surgery for any of your patients. It has an exact measurement of the iridocorneal angle. And again, for your hyperopic patients, if you're concerned about the possibility of narrow angle glaucoma, it is amazingly accurate. The tonometer takes the reading, then there's pachymetry, and so then the instrument calculates the corrected IOP based on the pachymetry, and that's displayed for you. So again, the wealth of information that the instrument provides quickly is pretty remarkable. So once I scan the summary page, then I kind of know which of the tabs to the right I'm going to pay particular attention to. So corneal disease and refractive surgery candidacy, the topographer, again, gives you just a tremendous amount of information. You can see all the tabs on the right. You can, for information geeks out there, this is quite a party. You can analyze this in so many different ways and gather so much information. But again, before making recommendations for cataract surgery or more complex contact lens fits, scleral lens fitting, that kind of thing, this kind of information is tremendous. This probably, when I first saw it, is the slide that made me feel like I just had to acquire this instrument. I mean, you think about all the work it takes to get information like this clinically, otherwise. You have the visible iris diameter, you have the cap angle, you have anterior chamber depth and volume measurements, you have corneal thickness measurements at regular intervals across the full diameter of the cornea, and you have, as I mentioned earlier, a very precise measurement of the iridocorneal angle. And a close runner-up, I guess, for favorite slide that sold me on the technology. Sometimes it is absolutely necessary to touch a patient's eyelid or eyeball, but generally patients do not like doctors touching them, like instilling eye drops or applying diagnostic strips. As you can imagine, dry eye disease management is a significant portion of my clinical practice, being located here in relatively dry and windy Malibu, particularly this winter. By simply placing their heads in a headrest and at the touch of a button, the Visionix dry eye analyzer quickly gathers far more diagnostic information than conventional methods and presents them on an Efron clinical grading scale, not only for dry eye, but the root causes of blepharitis and meibomian gland disease as well. The vivid displays allow the patient to better understand their disease and, more importantly, compels them to implement and comply with your treatment regimen. It really is amazing, the difference between before I acquired this technology and getting my dry eye patients to comply and after. Once they really get a handle on what this is all about. It's very difficult to explain blepharitis or meibomian gland dysfunction to a patient if you don't have like pictures to kind of really show them. So beautifully for the technician or for the doctor, when the technician does the follow-up, let's say a month later or so, it's very apparent that the progress that the patient has made, and it's apparent to the patient too because you can show them the progress, and it's really been dramatic. A lot of my patients at their 1 month follow-up, because they really get it and they were so compliant with their treatment regimen and my recommendations for products to use, that they're doing very well. They're in the green in all those different categories there you see, top to bottom. And of course, the color anterior segment camera takes these really, really great pictures. And so you can really see like the tear meniscus. Again, this is it presents so much information that you can spend all the time in the world, if you like, analyzing everything that it can show you about their dry eye disease. So this is another map. Again, how remarkable this technology is. It actually, you can watch a video of how it breaks up, and you can analyze it so many different ways. The first moment it detects breakup, where we would sort of as clinicians average kind of guess tear breakup time. It tells you the actual height of the tear meniscus. So again, so much wonderful information that to watch the video, the tear film breaking up and seeing the graph over time and all that, it's really quite a bit different than looking at a used Schirmer tear strip or trying to explain corneal staining with fluorescein or lissamine green or rose bengal. This is much more powerful in convincing your patients to do something. Better busy in the exam room. Well, this is a great picture of what is displayed at the end on the tablet provided with the Visionix iRefract. You can see at the top band across there has the PD from the lensometry reading from the Visionix VX40. It has the refraction. Then the next bar down is the wavefront aberrometry finding, including PD. And the iRefract also does topography to boot. So down at the bottom there, you can see keratometer readings down at the bottom right. Then the third bar down is the manifest refraction that results from your technician conducting it. Then finally at the bottom, you can show them their unaided acuity if they haven't worn glasses before and now you're introducing them to glasses. Otherwise, the technician shows them their current prescription, then shows them the wavefront aberrometry findings, and then shows them the final manifest refraction. An incredible amount of the time, the patient chooses the wavefront refractor finding, and usually it correlates extremely well with what's found in the manifest refraction. Again, if you get something that looks strange or doesn't sit well with you, it's very easy to repeat the process. And yeah, all of this data is put into my EHR, so I'm reviewing it before I see the patient. And again, it lets patients engage in their own care. I mean, it's pretty cool for them to look at. And again, it really improves the quality of my consultation time with them. And it makes it easier to talk to them about refractive surgery options. Along that note, sometimes you might think, well, maybe it's not so important to go over all the options available for your patients. But I found that doing so, particularly lately, refractive lens exchange, when I first started talking to my patients about that, I didn't really think that there would be a whole lot of takers, but I thought they better hear it from me first that this was now an option. And it's turning out to be one of my real avenues of growing my revenue because quite a few patients, even as young as 48, have elected to undergo refractive lens exchange. And they've been very, very happy. And of course, they tell people, and people come in to see me first to do the exam and then send them on the path to getting their refractive lens exchange. So it's been a surprising, huge practice builder. So here's my story. When I was young, I was a high myo, -7. Around 17, got fit with contact lenses, did fine until my 40s, then couldn't see up close anymore. Multifocal soft lenses didn't work very well when at that age. So I adapted to monovision. And then just about the time I adapted to monovision, LASIK came along. And so on September the 8th of 1998, I had monovision LASIK, and that served me beautifully for 22 years. But I noticed about 6 months prior to acquiring the no technology, my vision was a little bit different. I couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't blurry. I kind of thought it was dry eye because, this winter, again, in Malibu has been really dry and windy. So I just kind of attributed to that. It didn't seem like refraction made a heck of a lot of difference when I refracted myself. So when Deidre Huff came to train us, she did this wonderful function that the Visionix VX 120 Plus has. And basically, it's retroillumination. And sure enough, I had incipient cataract in both eyes. Well, subsequently, I've had cataract surgery on both eyes recently with multifocal implants, and I see beautifully. And as a clinician, I was always a fan of having my patients get a cataract surgery. But now that I have benefited from it personally, I'm a huge fan of it. It's such an easy process. There's no recovery time, and I see better than I can ever remember. So, kind of in review, the benefits of refining the role of technology and my techs. I would say that one reason is, it improves the interaction between the techs and myself. We're constantly we're kind of learning together all this new technology, and we constantly make suggestions of how we can make it flow more smoothly, or how we might slightly adjust the patient flow or whatever. In the old days, the technician did the pre-test and the doctor got the information, and the patient sat around between the time they had their pre-tests and seeing the doctor. But this, the patient flow is pretty remarkable. So the patient response to the Luno technology has been off the charts. To give you an example, my landlord has had vision challenges since he was very young. And, people of means in Los Angeles, if they have a significant eye or vision disorder, they go to Jules Stein Eye Institute. So for all these years, he's gone to Jules Stein Eye Institute. But when he saw this amazing new technology in my new location, he asked to have his eyes examined. And of course, I let my technicians examine his eyes. I didn't examine them. And he was so impressed with his experience getting his eyes examined with Luno technology compared to what he had experienced at Jules Stein. And then when he got his prescription glasses, he was so thrilled at his vision that subsequently he's bought like 12 pair. He put it out on social media all over how mind-blowing the refraction is. And so I mentioned that they just, opened a new Tesla dealership next to my location. And my landlord is friends with the CEO of Tesla. And once the COVID restrictions are over with, my landlord is going to host a reception for the group, in a sense, grand opening of the Tesla dealership. And of course, the CEO of Tesla is going to attend, and my landlord is going to insist that he get his eyes examined with this fabulous new high technology. So when you think about the part of return on investment, I kind of think of it this way. If you take $100,000 and invest it in a stock, and a short time later you have $1 million, you don't even think about the $100,000 you invested. You think about the $900,000 profit you've made. And that's kind of how it goes when you implement this fabulous technology. So overall practice benefits to review. Yeah, reinvest in my patients. This is probably the most dramatic way I've ever done. Makes my life easier, absolutely. I think I've given you some idea how it maximizes return on investment. I don't even know. I think this thing with social media and once all the students return, because so far my young people love to take pictures of it all on their smartphone and send it to all their friends and send it out on social media. So I don't even know where this is going to go in terms of return on investment. But honestly, I don't even recall what I paid for any of these instruments, because it really, at this point, is nothing that my mind even concerns itself with. So I think you really see the technicians are empowered. They really enjoy it. This is very cool. This is very high-tech stuff. They, their morale boost. They feel very good about themselves. It helps with staff retention. Who would want to go anywhere else and work when you have this fantastic technology to work with? Of course, as I've said many times, I benefit because basically everything's laid out for me even before I really get down to presenting the findings to the patient. Yeah, and operating at the top of my license. I mean, I feel really good about myself too. I feel like I am doing everything possible clinically that I could as an optometrist to benefit my patients. And I don't do it often, but when I do operate these instruments myself, I think they're pretty cool. I'm fascinated too in operating them. But yeah, it really allows me to really educate my patients. And again, once your patients are educated, I call it re-empowering my patients. I put them back in control. They've heard so much misinformation. If you see blurry, your eyes are weak. If you get glasses, it'll make your eyes weaker. On and on it goes. But when you just take the time to go beyond trying to explain nearsightedness and farsightedness and explain myopia, hyperopia, astigmatism, and presbyopia, how their glasses work, how their contacts work, it's amazing the results you get in the dispensary, etc. I mean, again, in terms of patient confidence when you interact with your patients about your findings, I think, the saying is a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I think with Luno technology and its fantastic displays of information, I think one of their pictures is worth $1,000, and that's not an exaggeration. So yeah, selling from the chair. I don't really have to sell from the chair. I just really, after the patient's educated, when we talk about blue filters or anti-reflective coating or high index lenses, our capture rate is virtually 100%. So with that, we'll begin our question and answer session. And yeah, I would certainly invite you and encourage you to schedule a virtual demo at lunotechusa.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. O'Connor. That was great. Although I have to tell you now, all I'm thinking about is Elon Musk sitting in your chair with one of your technicians with a tablet in hand, shaking like a leaf, doing the most important refraction of her life.
You know what? My techs are used to a lot of heavy-duty celebrities and A-listers, so they handle it pretty well. They're actually excited about meeting him. So am I.
Yeah, it should be a very cool experience. So I guess we have a bunch of questions here, but let me start off with a philosophical one, I guess, for you. So you mentioned this idea of giving up refraction, right? Where the doctor is finally handing this over to someone else. And I know psychologically for a lot of people that is a very difficult leap to make, probably the most difficult, right, in terms of control, because you're taught from a very early on in your career that refraction is what you do. So I guess the question here was, when did you psychologically make that leap and feel ready to sort of give it up and let somebody else handle it?
Yeah, I guess when I acquired technology, we had a fire here in 2006, so we had to replace all the equipment and everything. So with the at the time Marco the Epic 5100 system, I began to see that this technology now really was getting reliable. The OPD3, that was getting pretty darn good, and it's still cumbersome to kind of go through the Epic 5100 and that kind of thing. So I wasn't totally convinced that it would be the time to turn over doing full refractions to my technicians at that point. But then once I saw the Luno technology, and once when they told me you just have your technician use the tablet, follow the script, and I did just that. After Deidre left after the training, I didn't do anything. I said, go for it. Threw him in the deep end. And the information I got was remarkable, dependable. And so, of course, now, through our mutual interaction, we've refined everything. We've made everything smoother, but I have absolute confidence. So I guess it's been sort of a transition, but as the technology has gotten more reliable, I felt more comfortable. And with Luno technology, I feel totally comfortable.
I guess a follow-up question, though, in the same vein is, when do you modify the objective findings that the device is giving you? What are those cases where you actually have to go back and make some modifications?
Yeah, it's rare, but if I have any question at all, I'll go in and I'll go back over a few little things, just to fine tune it. It's never off by much. I mean, really, it just isn't. I would say that the axis from the dual wavefront aberrometers of the Visionix iRefract is 100% every time. I don't think you ever have to question the axis. The sphere, the cylinder, that might be a half diopter either way, but it's not much off from that. The one limitation that we found that wavefront aberrometry has is it doesn't like having no information. So sometimes with patients with opacities, then you're better off just reverting to whatever you're comfortable with as a practitioner, examining a patient with more significant cataract and that kind of thing, whatever system you already have in place. But really, I find it's pretty rare.
And question here, you mentioned early in the presentation that you have moved to a model where you have no waiting room. How does that actually work? I mean, I guess in COVID, it's kind of easy to get away with that, but in normal times, how does that work?
Well, everything flows so efficiently, and now we have different stations where we can start the exam. It doesn't always have to flow in that patient flow. I mean, we can put them in and we can do Optimaps first, then we can take them to the, the BX120 plus. We can put different patients in different rooms, or, we can, begin to show them frames. We engage them. We just don't let them sit there. So, right. Yeah.
It's very much the Disneyland approach, right, of keeping people moving.
Yeah, exactly right. Keep them engaged. Yep, absolutely right.
Yep.
And again, that really improves your revenue flow.
Absolutely. Question here. So dry eye. You showed a few slides, earlier, showing what the device can do. The question is, in general, how has your approach changed to dry eye? Before technology and now with technology, what did you do differently, or what are you doing differently now?
Well, I guess because I can see the results myself, we actually put together different little kits, so to speak, to start the patient off on, depending on their level of dry eye, and with very specific instructions on how to use those products. And they can purchase them through us because we do package them in a nice little kit, or they can go to Amazon and order them and put the kit together themselves. But we have made it very organized, depending on the level of dry eye that we can easily assess based on, what this technology shows us, like the degree of blepharitis, the degree of meibomian gland dysfunction. You can tailor your dry eye regimen based on what you find.
Interesting question here, and thank you for asking it because I didn't even think about it. For your offices, typically, how many patients do you see per hour so people can get a sense of what your workflow is actually like?
We see about 3 patients per hour
Got it.
currently. Now, I don't know what it's going to be like because of COVID with our new location. I don't know. But historically here at Malibu Eye Center Optometry, my established location, it's about 3 patients an hour that we see here. Over there with that technology, really, I have no idea.
Question here, you mentioned, training and getting set up. So about how long did it take for your techs to actually really get up to speed with doing this? So where you felt like, this was an actual replacement for what you were doing before, where everyone was trained and really competent?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I actually have two answers to that question. The first answer is right away, because honestly, just right after the training, just how they've been instructed with their training, I paid for this technology, I paid for this training, I want to see if what they tell me is for real. And it was for real. Right away, my technicians, I was kind of stand, within earshot initially. So if they kind of hit a snag, I could kind of go in and smooth things out for them and get them going again. But I got, surprisingly very, very accurate, and reliable information. Now, yeah, like all high technology, it can be finicky at times, and certain things we learn, like with opacities and that, it might balk at that a little bit, or high anisometropia. So I'd say it took about a month for us to really be smooth in front of the patient, no matter what might develop, and know how to handle it. So about a month, I guess.
Interesting question here. You brought up social media earlier, and obviously the market that you're in, right, is probably one of the most social media savvy regions in the entire country. Have you been actually leveraging this in a sort of formal way? Do you have people use hashtags or whatever, or is it just sort of organically they're mentioning your practice when they come in and take pictures?
Yeah, we're investigating that. Again, with COVID, we don't really feel like it's the time to pull the trigger, but we're certainly investigating different social media marketing firms, to guide us in developing a sophisticated social media marketing program. Certainly Blue Bottle Coffee next door, which if you're not familiar with it, is sort of a high-end Starbucks that's extremely popular among young people who are sophisticated with social media, because Blue Bottle Coffee is very savvy at that. So I admire what they do, and eventually we'll implement that. My practice manager, Salvatore, is very excellent at Instagram at posting about our technology, posting about new inventory, new frames we get in, events that occur, or whatever. So he does a very good job on Instagram in terms of social media promoting us, and we do get good response from that.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm actually looking at the time right now. We've actually gone over an hour, so we went past our allotted time. But this has actually been really excellent. And I think what we're going to do is post this archive up at ODwire, so it'll be there forever. And hopefully, if people have more questions, they can come on back to the site, and I can pass them on to you. So maybe we can continue the dialogue about all this online. So I guess that's about it. So, so Dr. O'Connor, thank you so much for being here tonight. And thank you everyone for coming this evening. And again, this will be posted up on ODwire for you. And we will continue the conversation online. So good night, everyone. And thanks for being here.